So we see quite a few trends influencing the payment sector both this year and more broadly this decade. But we do think that new entrants are missing some attributes. So for example, in this year, we do see a shift from payments that are more direct to embedded finance. And what that means is we're seeing payments become a feature set in other use cases that might actually own the user's experience, for example, in FMCG, etc. The other thing that we're seeing is a shift from direct-to-consumer products, so direct P2P type payment products, and other things to more products that are focused on small businesses across the sector. And then finally, this year there has been a proliferation of the neobank approach where people might start with payments, but those payment companies often want to layer on other financial services that then encompass an entire banking solution. This is just this year. I would say this decade a lot will change. It is a decade. And what we think are some of the major trends for the decade would be banking as a service. So instead of just neobanks, we're going to see embedded finance become all-encompassing on the banking side. So we'll have embedded payments, embedded lending, savings, etc. down the line, but really the API-fication of those services. Another couple of trends to really look at this decade that we see, one is this online to offline trend where payments so far has really been focused on online processes. And we really do think that like the trends in agent banking, there will be a lot more online to offline interaction between payment companies and their users, and which will allow them to reach a larger base. And then finally, it would be remiss to not talk about this decade without mentioning crypto and blockchain's potential effect. We know that there are a lot of regulatory hurdles and things to navigate, but it would be amiss to really forget about crypto or blockchain when talking about the next 10 years in African payments. And then finally, when we think about what entrants are missing, it really is right now an ability to serve more than the top 5% of the population. Things like internet connectivity, income do affect this, and we do think that this will change over time, but it will require companies to think a lot more about how they connect with the broader digital economy, including things like food, agriculture, FMCG, that really drive spending in multiple economies around the continent.
As globalization continues, trends that are influencing the payment sector include the increase of e-commerce spend on the continent globally. The Nigerian e-commerce economy is set to be worth $29 billion by 2022. The importation number into Africa continues to rise as well. And also the African consumer is rightfully becoming more demanding and sophisticated as well. So we're noticing consumers wanting seamless end-to-end frictionless transactions through a mirage of different payment methods. That means technology companies or payment gateways are having to craft their product to facilitate payments from different sources symbiotically, which includes facilitating payments from mobile money, M-Pesa, card payments, using digital wallets, and of course buy now pay later, which is becoming increasingly popular, particularly among electronics in Nigeria.
The trends that we see influencing the payment sector this year and this decade is really around financial inclusion. If you look at what's happening in the financial inclusion side, this is fueling the growth of digital wallets, whether it is mobile phone number linked wallets or proprietary wallets either issued by the banks or any other big customers that have got an ecosystem. So we're seeing digital wallets being a very big trend that we are seeing in the sector. The second one is digital currencies. We again driven by the desire to bring down the cost of banking, make sure there are more people are accessing banking services. We're seeing digital currencies led by the central banks also beginning to become a thing that we are seeing as well. And of course, cashless Africa is almost becoming a reality here. We've dreamed that we could have Africa where cash is not used, and increasingly we are seeing this becoming a reality in front of our eyes. So I think these are the three things that I see, trends that that we are seeing influencing the payment sector in Africa.
Africa's payments landscape has evolved in many ways over the past few years and continues to grow at a rapid pace. From our perspective, the difference between verification and authentication and the growth or the evolution from verification to authentication in terms of the use of biometrics to validate the identity of a person has been one of the key drivers to the growth of payments in Nigeria and across Africa. So that being said, the evolution of identity infrastructure has been a big enabler for allowing more advanced forms of payments like seamless checkout. Another contributor to the evolution is how banks and fintechs have implemented technologies like USSD, mobile money, POS, and payment APIs, enabling Africa to surpass some of its more developed counterparts. So I would say payment services in Africa are expanding rapidly and becoming more efficient at it, and moving money has become easier and faster than ever before. And this has been profoundly affected customer behavior.
So at the AFS Lab, we see quite a few trends influencing the payment sector this year and in the coming decade. And we do think that new entrants are missing some things. So this year in the payment sector, we think that there's certainly a shift from direct payments into embedded finance, and we're also seeing the shift from consumer payment products more into small business and B2B type products. And finally, we do see the proliferation of the neobank model, where payments are just the beginning of a broader suite of banking products that entrants want to offer their consumers in order to drive enough revenues from them. But more broadly in this decade, we think that that kind of neobanking product will shift into more of an embedded banking as a service product, where a lot of those features will be integrated into APIs for use cases rather than a direct payment or fintech product for those users. We also think that there will be a real shift into online and offline use cases that blend both. So we already see this in agent models that have offline agents doing payments on behalf of users and for users, but we think that will extend to a lot of other financial products and deeper payments into more use cases as well. Finally, it would be remiss for me to not mention the effect that crypto and blockchain could have on payments in this decade. There's obviously a lot of regulatory questions around it and how these use cases will work, especially in relation to fiat, but I don't think it's something that you can miss. And then finally, when talking about what new entrants into the payment space might be missing, we think that ultimately it's about the ability to serve anyone broader than the top 5%. We know that it's very difficult because of connectivity and income ceilings, but we do think that in the future, companies that do want to offer payments will have to be able to serve the broader digital economy in African economies. As the FS Lab, we are looking at the future in light of these trends that we're seeing. So, for example, we have shifted very, very quickly from a pure fintech investor and payments investor to one that looks at the digital economy as a whole. And so, for example, we do look at things like supply chain, logistics, social e-commerce, and on the new retail side, we're very excited about things like dark stores and cloud kitchens. This isn't to say that we don't think fintech and payments continue to be a very core part of how the digital economy moves forward, but we think that without those types of connectivity to the broader real economy, payments will never be able to reach most people that it needs to reach to become a real venture-backable success.
Yeah, so at Klasha, we're bullish about scaling technology that addresses Pan-African payment issues. We believe localization is important while building technology for Africa. And our core product development is focused on understanding the pain points of African consumers accessing the goods they want from international merchants, as well as making seamless cross-border payments online. We relentlessly pursue the needs of individual consumers in Africa from a macro Pan-African perspective, developing technology to streamline our consumers' complete end-to-end online experience while ordering goods online or making payments cross-border. One of our strengths as a company is how seamless our technology works within a few clicks, particularly our payment gateway. And we're focused on developing this to ensure we're meeting the needs of our consumers, regardless of their geographic location across the continent.
Yeah, thanks. As Ecobank, there are several steps and initiatives that we're taking, knowing that, e-commerce in Africa is going to become a big thing. The first one is ensuring that we got a good coverage. For you to play in the e-commerce space, you need coverage. You need to be able to, cover the large population in Africa. And I think we are fortunate that we already have a network of 33 countries that we cover that comprise a huge proportion of the population in Africa today. The second thing that you need to have is good and scalable, technology, which includes the ability to be able to switch, transactions from, one country to another or from one, customer to another. Again, thankfully, we have that, capability to switch transactions across, 33 countries in Africa today. And of course, the third thing is the skill set. This is a technology-driven, business, and we need to make sure that you have the right technology skills to be able to, to play in the e-commerce space. And I think that's also another area of focus that we have had as Ecobank.
I think biometrics presents a unique opportunity for innovation. The technology creates an irreversible connection between user and provider without the need for physical presence. And this significantly increases operational efficiency and decreases fraud. What that does is that it secures the payment environment and provides more features and innovations that can, leverage, I would say the infrastructure. Really to speak to the second point, the second part of the question, without digital identities, there are no payments. For the funds to go from one end to the other, the basic premise is that you need to know who's sending the money and who's receiving the money. At VerifyMe, we think of it in terms of, a technology stack, with digital identity being the first layer of the stack. If you look at the history of NIBS, for example, and payments in Nigeria, you will see that we weren't able to accelerate payments until we were able to get a form of digital identity, which I think NIBS and Central Bank of Nigeria were at the forefront of. The digital identity layer, I think, is actually what enables the payments layer, and it's not really. This is really, as we, based on our experience and everybody knows in the industry. So the expansion of digital identities from verification to authentication, the use of biometrics for identity is also going to further expand that payments layer as well. So I think we're only at the beginning of the innovations we're going to see for payments in the future, and much of it is going to be on the the backbone of the identity or the critical infrastructure that identity companies such as VerifyMe provides.
A lot of it comes back to thinking about how connectivity between their portfolio companies in the digital ecosystem can function. So for example, a lot of investors now are investing in things like logistics, e-commerce, and consumer internet. But I don't think there still is a lot of connectivity between portfolio companies about how that creates a digital stack for the consumer. So for example, how do those different approaches to the digital economy allow consumers to enjoy payments through use cases that improve their day-to-day lives, right? And so just like we were talking about in the future, where payments might be embedded in not the core use case of why a user uses a product, it still is a critical piece of why that product will work efficiently, effectively, and with high enough margins. And so what we do is we're asking founders right now to build pieces of infrastructure, and I think the least we can do is really help them find win-win situations and partnerships. So we think that to accelerate further innovation, investors will have to invest with conviction and broader visions across the entire digital ecosystem.
I think in Africa, one of the major issues that cause friction in digital payments, quite simply, is the lack of internet connectivity and internet infrastructure that we have here in Africa. Not all countries are connected seamlessly with fast broadband or 4G, which basically directly affects us being able to make payments end to end online. And I think that is probably the bedrock of one of the major challenges that we have with transacting online. Another challenge is the inability to use African issued money methods internationally, which is critical for the African consumer to remain competitive in a global market. And I think this can be addressed by additional fintech companies or payment companies providing and building the back-end infrastructure to process African-issued cards, M-Pesa, mobile money, which is critical for us to be able to remain competitive globally, and thus giving us Africans access to the goods we want frictionlessly.
So financial institutions can collaborate with startups, to build products that serve the informal sector better. How do we see this happening? So I think the first one is to understand that we always need to focus on solving problem and removing friction. Now, for that to happen, there's a role that banks or financial institutions can play, and there's a role that startups can play. Financial institutions are very good in terms of controls, in terms of process, in terms of risk management, and they have the right regulatory licenses to be able to facilitate payments. Startups, on the other hand, are agile, they can move fast, they deploy their technology faster, and therefore, if each one of us, focuses on doing what they are good at, I think we can be able to, really serve the informal sector, better. So really, by each partner focusing on what they are good at, we can really be able to get this done.
Yeah, no, so for us, we're very excited, and as previously mentioned, we see ourselves as being in the critical layer, of the required ID technology stack, right? We are, one of the fastest growing startups in the ID space in Nigeria today. So the steps we're taking are to continue to evolve our identity verification products, the ecosystem, where we're able to bring, most forms of government identity direct sourced and licensed to our customers for authentication, and build products on our access and infrastructure for authentication, and even build further products for customer profiling, as well, which all lead to enhancing and enabling and securing payments and e-commerce, so that life can be easier for all of us actually as we just move through our transactions. So we are constantly creating, identity solutions. We are currently working on fantastic products for customer profiling and authentication. This year we released our facial recognition technology, and are cooking up some amazing products to help our customers with SIM swap fraud, and device identity as well, in that space. So we're constantly innovating to ensure that we provide the best experience for our customers, and also provide the best options for their compliance, and for the risk mitigation as well. Another great question. Some of the factors, causing friction in digital payments, and, looking at how our digital identity infrastructure can, be key to addressing them are, as we look at the market and look at our customers, you can, almost not discuss payments, without discussing the subject of onboarding, because, payment companies need to be compliant. A number of payment providers who are not using VerifyMe, I would say, by the way, and merchants, by the way, have cumbersome onboarding processes, that make the process difficult for customers to start making payments. At the root of this, is really the ability to establish trust quickly, which is, one of the capabilities or solutions that we provide to our customers. The available mechanisms to establish that trust, so that customers can start doing transactions quickly enough, need to be refined. Other than that, I would really say that Nigeria, as a good example in Nigeria, has somewhat of an advanced payment system. I would say as a result of secure digital identification systems, it provides the foundation for developing scalable payment systems, that can also function internationally. So a perfect example is if you're just thinking about, the international standards that now we have in terms of anti-money laundering compliance for our identities. It really allows Nigerians to move money internationally because we have trusted identities. So we're trusted in the international, payment system as well. So I would say the development of digital identities has become a major, since it has become a major concern for governments and financial institutions, as a trying to improve security. I would say the key to addressing the issue of payments is secure digital identities, and continue to expand the number of people that can be financially included, socially included, so that they can make payments.
I think the future of payments is something that I think about and I find interesting. And I was just thinking back a few minutes ago. Every time a new device drops, most likely the iPhone, there's this funny meme that shows up online where there's like different options to pay. It's like pay with a card, pay with something else, and there's pay with your kidney, right? And it's always a joke, but I mean, it makes me wonder, what else, what else we'll be paying for items with as we go on. So yes, wonderful. So I have Jessica Anuna here from Klasha, and I have Esigie Aguele from VerifyMe. All right, so on to the questions. So this is for Esigie. This says, does VerifyMe authenticate sellers so that buyers are comfortable doing business with them? Does this make payments before delivery work? Esigie, did you get that? Awesome.
Yes, I did. And this is one of the ways, and it's a great question for us because it really allows us for us to describe ourselves properly. While we are an API ecosystem and bring together all the authoritative sources of identity, addressing services, locationing services, we really are a trust platform. And our platform allows people to reduce their cost of high transactions by establishing trust economically. So to answer your question, a lot of our customers are actually merchants who are verifying sellers, folks who are exchanging goods, and merchants. So many of the I would say payment companies that verify their merchants, many of the mobile banking companies, the banks that have mobile banking, we are actually, I would say, quite robust in that space in verifying or having the ability to verify, pretty much anyone. So yes, our customers are almost everybody. Payment companies, merchants, fintech, of course, is our number one payment customer. But yeah, we're able to verify and improve trust across platforms.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Keep your questions coming in via Slido. Next is, I'll put this to Jessica. In the past 1 year, payment online, has skyrocketed due to the pandemic. And one thing that has also skyrocketed is also fraud, right? People having issues, making payments. And just curious to know what you've seen, from Klasha, and what ways you're, looking to combat that, right? To ensure that that trust is still there, because we've come a long way from people not trusting, paying online, and now they trust, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest challenges of making payments online is trust, both from the consumer side and also what we found is from merchants receiving payments from Africa. So at Klasha, we saw an influx of merchants contact us wanting to scale into Africa given the pandemic and having a surplus of stock or having the ability or needing the ability to scale quickly into other regions. So just like my colleague from VerifyMe said, it's very important for us to onboard customers successfully at Klasha. So whoever comes on board, we have a robust verifying process. We make sure we have their BVN. At points, we do biometrics. We make sure that we know who is using our platform at every time. And then we also monitor transactions 24/7, which flags to us any transactions that may or may not be fraudulent. And, we make sure that we are compliant at every stage of that transaction process. It's very important for us to integrate technology that is able to identify fraud quickly to mitigate the risk for both our consumers and merchants. But what we're finding is that consumers are using a varied means of money methods across Africa, including M-Pesa, mobile money, and cards. So what we've had to do is integrate fraud verification processes and policies that cater to each of those different money methods, and also that is country specific, because as we know, the verification process in Nigeria is very different to the verification process in Kenya and Uganda, given the availability of information, how they actually spend and use money online. So I think as fintech, as payment processing continues to scale across Africa, across border, it's very important for fintechs to invest in the infrastructure to protect their technology, protect their customers, which therefore protects their merchants as well.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Uh, Next, and this question is dedicated to Isaac Kamuta. Isaac joined us while they were speaking. Isaac, head of global payments, cash payments at Ecobank. So it's on inclusion. So the person asks, on inclusion, is the future of payments delving towards reaching out to the marginalized poor in underdeveloped economies who have no access to internet? So is that the future you see, Isaac? And how is
Yeah, I
Ecobank?
think that's,
How is Ecobank
yeah,
going
go
about
on.
this? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's a very good question, because when we talk about the future of payments, we always have to make sure that we factor in everybody, because not everybody today has access to a smartphone. And when you look at the data that we have, in fact, I was just looking at the data today, and I was saying in 2019 alone, the number of mobile phone app downloads was 204 billion. Okay, that's the data. There's the number of downloads that was on the phone in 2019, 204 billion. Now, again, if you look at the data that we have from research, people are spending an average of 4 hours per day on average on their phones. Now, if you take that data and then you imagine the number of people that don't have smartphones that are still locked out, you still realize that that number is still very big, especially in Africa. And so as we talk about the future of payments, as we talk about where the world is going, we always have to think about this group of people that still don't have access to financial services and are still excluded. Now, within Ecobank ourselves, and as you know, with our network that covers 33 countries, we're in the middle of all this. And what the vision that we have is ensuring that we can have payments, systems and platforms that are able to cater for everybody. So, for example, if you look at our express accounts that we offer our clients, you can be able to open an express account just using a feature phone. So you don't have to have a smartphone. You can just use a USSD code and be able to open an express account. And so, as we talk about the future of payments, we always have to have this group of people that still don't have access to smartphones in the middle of every product design that we have. Now, with also now the digital currencies beginning to come into place, and central banks beginning to embrace digital currencies, we also saying we cannot afford to leave these people as well behind, and therefore there must be a way where those that still have access to feature phones are able to play also in the digital currency space. So I think it is something within us Ecobank we're very passionate about. In every country that we operate in, we want to make sure that we can be able to bank everybody. Those that have smartphones, we have the Ecobank mobile app. Those that don't have, that are using feature phones, you can still be able to enjoy banking services just using your feature phone, and we wait for you to be able to grow and graduate across as you continue evolving the economic space. So I think we must make sure that in every space, every sphere that we are doing, we are thinking about everybody, including those that have been financially excluded.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very insightful. So now, this next section goes to Steven. So Steven from DFS Lab. Curious about, you invest in a lot of startups. What are some interesting approaches you're seeing in terms of them tackling payments? We talk about crypto, we talk about different. What are you seeing?
Yeah, and thanks for having me. This looks like an amazing event, and hello from the west coast of the U.S. I think the payment space is evolving very quickly, and you talk about crypto, but I think what Isaac said just recently is very important as well, which is it's very difficult to reach the broader base of consumers. So I would say in terms of interesting things that we're saying, one is this interchange between online and offline, right? We see a lot of work being done online, but also to help offline users or previously offline users either pay online or onboard to become more digitally native online users. And the other way around too, right? If you start off online, there's always the opportunity to finish transactions offline or to get your product offline. So that interchange between online and offline is becoming ever more important. I also do think that we are seeing a lot more cross-border and international products, and because one of the options you do have if you can't reach that mass population is to what I call skim off the top. So service the kind of top 1 to 5% in a lot of different countries to get a big enough TAM, total addressable market for your startup, and that's something that we're certainly seeing as well. And I think finally, the crypto space is starting to heat up, and it is one that we are looking at for sure. But like everything else, both in startups and the payments world, I think it comes down to use cases. So while very interesting, the infrastructure that the crypto allows, I think a lot of blockchain and crypto still requires that kind of killer use case that really will allow it to scale. So those are kind of three quick things off the top of my head.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, you're right. The crypto space is definitely heating up. All right, so this is to Jessica Klasha. Someone's asking what is the adoption rate of digital payments among the everyday women.
Yeah, great question. As we know, African women are the backbone of the African economy. We make up 70% of the self-employment rate across Africa. So what we're finding here is that there's actually an equal split amongst men and women adopting our technology and using our infrastructure to make payments online. But as the African economy increases and continues to grow, as globalization increases, we're seeing more and more women coming online, empowering themselves, making payments online and accessing the goods they want, as well as sending money cross-border using our technology. So I think as women entrepreneurship continues, as we start to continue to get access to the internet and get online as our male counterparts are, we're going to start to see female adoption increase as pertains to digital payments. We're seeing that already here at Klasha, but I can only imagine the number increasing given the amount of self-employed and entrepreneurial women living on our continent.
All right. Thank you. That's very good to hear. Now to VerifyMe, I just mix these two questions together. Someone is asking to get the scope of your work, whether you also work with, whether you verify data of workers in public sector, and also, how much role machine learning plays in getting this done.
Significant, and I'll take the machine learning, question first. So, one of the great things about KYC in Nigeria, one of the unique things about KYC, I would say in Africa, is that there is a last mile aspect to it. So as a result of doing all the tier 3 digitization, so that we have tier 1 financial inclusion, tier 2 financial inclusion, tier 3. And for the tier 3 of Nigeria requirements, basically require that there's some logistics involved to go and verify that person's home address. So one of the things we do as we verify these different types of information, employment, address, which we actually bring together for financial profiling, because we really have a strong ecosystem that's pretty much an aggregator. We actually use machine learning on two fronts. We use machine learning to basically assign to our agents. Because we get really, quite a bit of traffic daily. So assign types of work to our agents. We use machine learning basically to kind of run different campaigns to facilitate our I would say logistics, the execution of the third tier 3 KYC. So, and it's very interesting on that part because, because we have such a great logistics engine, we actually do quite a bit of asset verifications as well for, insurance companies. About 10 of the top 15 insurance companies in Nigeria use us. About 35 financial institutions, the major banks in Nigeria use us as well for all sorts of their verifications over API. So machine learning has come in very handy for us. On the profiling side, of course we do. For our facial recognition and actually is AI powered. And we also use machine learning for a lot of the profiling products that we're building for our customers as well. So I would say none of us are going to get out of the machine learning, AI, I would say blockchain technology over the next 2 years because they're so critical to, I'd say, all of the platforms and all of the products that we're building.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so this next question is about super apps. This is for, Stephen Deng. Person is asking, as an investor in digital commerce, what's the outlook on super apps in African context, and what would such a platform look like?
I had a feeling this one was coming to me. Yeah, super apps in Africa and in specific countries in Africa are extremely exciting. And here are a few reasons why I think they will look very different than a lot of what we've seen elsewhere, either in Asia or potentially the kind of older ones in the US. One is the agent networks, right? So again, this online to offline O2O revolution that is happening, it certainly has happened in Southeast Asia, but Southeast Asia also does not have the agent networks that like places like in Nigeria that's starting and very established in East Africa. That does so much for ability to reach local populations and local users compared to just going digital. The second thing is there's this concept called invested infrastructure, right? So it's a question of what is the pain of switching to a new use case or a new product compared to what already exists. And I think in many economies in Africa, there's an opportunity to do something pretty new, right? So there is an opportunity to leverage the most current technologies, the most current thinking, and the most current abilities to reach users that you don't have because that time has passed. Let's say in the US, it is now impossible to have the same kind of restart in the US for some of the things like logistics or commerce. Whereas in many African markets, when you look at a super app, they will combine both those agent networks and new ways of thinking about utilizing them with e-commerce that is cutting edge, along with payment infrastructures that utilize things like blockchain, distributed ledgers, etc. So you have a moment now where you're able to reach deeper into the population, into mass markets, as well as create more efficient and frankly more inclusive, both on the sales and the buying side, economies, and that will all be wrapped up, I think, in a new digital payments ecosystem that will be world class, and it's just a matter of time. And that is what a super app could look like. No one is going to tell you exactly how it will be, but it'll be there.
All right, awesome. Look forward to seeing what it will look like. So this is to Isaac. This question is to you. So what do you think is the role of telcos in the payment space in Africa? How can they increase the number of digital payments? Bank and telcos typically work together a lot. Isaac, what do you think?
Thanks for that question as well. So I think telcos have got a very important role to play, especially in Africa. Now, if you think about what the telcos have, they already have the customers, subscribers in their base. They are already utilizing services. They already have the data. They've already verified, these customers, and on a day-to-day basis, they're using their services for voice, for data. And so when you look at what they already have and the ability to be able to add other value-added services, whether it is mobile wallets, and then which then gets connected to be able to make payments, it becomes very, very easy because they already have the customer on their side. However, the only other thing I would like to say is that, again, these all tend to be joint customers. The customers, on the other hand, they want financial services. They want to be able to move payments, and they want to be able to access lending, which I think is a very key requirement. So you see the role of whether it's the telcos then working with the banks or the financial services companies to be able to come up with solutions that address specific needs that the consumers are actually asking for. So if I want a small, loan, to be able to fuel my car, if I'm a taxi driver and, I need to be able to fuel my car to finish my journey, then the collaboration point then exists there between the telco, whom may already have a mobile wallet enabled, and the financial services company or the bank that has got access to balance sheet that can be able to lend. And so the opportunity for collaboration in that example that I've described is actually very, very big. And you can extend that to as many sectors as you can. Whether in the agri sector, Africa is still heavily, an agriculture, or the agricultural potential in Africa is still very, very big. And you've got farmers on one side. The farmers need access to funding, to be able to buy fertilizer, to be able to to buy their chemicals. And again, you see an opportunity there where you can be able to collaborate to be able to provide access to financing, to these farmers. So I think the telcos have got a very, very important role to play because, they have this customer base, and they can be able to access them on the app or even on USSD, those with feature phones. But on the other hand, you've got other players there, like banks that can be able to provide balance sheet, that can be able to provide financing. And as you know, financing is a huge gap that we have in the continent. So by working together, between banks and telcos, we can be able to solve the financing challenges that exist in the African continent. Now, then you also have got other players as well. We've got fintechs that are also solving very specific problems, again, in a specific ecosystem. So you find that there's a role of fintechs, there's a role of banks, and there's a role of the telcos. And I think working together, we can be able to solve the problems that exist here in Africa, that we so much, I think we have a more or less a duty to be able to solve working together.
All right, awesome, very correct. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, my wonderful panelists. Thank you so much, Isaac. Thank you so much, Jessica, Esigie, and Stephen. Thank you so much, everyone in the audience. We've come to the end of this session. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next session. Bye.